Hello, and welcome back finally to another episode. And I apologize that it has taken so long for me to get back into the swing of things since the last episode. I've been out of the country, I've been sick, my cat has been sick, I've been starting a garden and in general getting ready for spring, and just a bunch of different things outside of game development that made me decide to just take a while, I guess like 2 months off of the game development and get everything else in my personal life under control so that I could have time for this. But I'm finally back and I'm ready to get into the swing of things. Now, if we take a look at the Trello board, we'll notice that I have not accomplished a whole lot this year. And we're getting along in the year, so I would like to start ramping up the development. Essentially, all we've done is this item right here, refactor the item management, and that was a big lift for sure, but I'd like to start getting things underway. So I have a list right here of things that I want to get to this year, and I will say that this is not an exhaustive list. I want to probably add to this, but these are just the things that I could think of from the backlog that I wanted to pull in for sure that I need to get done this year. So right now what I've decided is I'm going to take another stab at Pixelgen. It's been a very long time since I've worked on Pixelgen. If you remember, it's the pixel art generating tool that I'm going to use for character art development. And it's very far from complete. I have the basic prototype working and it seems to be pretty solid, but right now it doesn't handle hair. So basically how it works is it has the assumption that the silhouette of all of my characters is going to be the exact same thing. And I can pretty much hold to that. That's a fairly reliable assumption just because of my art style is a very simplistic one, except for hair. Hair is going to vary from character to character, but I think I can limit it down to a few basic hairstyles that I can keep going back to and essentially change the hair by the colors I add into it and the different styles I draw into that silhouette. So I'm going to work on this, see if I can implement hair for Pixelgen, and we'll see what I can get done. Welcome back. As you can see, it's been a few days. It's at least been a night, but yes, it's been a few days since I gave you an update last, and I've done a bit more than just Pixelgen, and that doesn't mean I've been super productive. It meant I got bored with working on Pixelgen. I will tell you, Pixelgen is really exciting and cool and has a lot of potential for later on this project, but it is really boring to set up. Let me show you what I mean. So what I've got right here is the project of Pixelgen, and as you can see, I've changed the UI a bit. I've given a little presentation of what the character looks like. Previously, it would just output a bunch of files all split up, but this way you can actually see what the animation would look like and you can make changes in the view. You see the hair is on the first one, but that doesn't mean Pixelgen is capable of generating hair for one particular reason. It is kind of time consuming to do another layer for Pixelgen's what would you call them, blueprints or templates. So for every different layer, like the head, the torso, the arms, the legs, that I'm splitting out into different layers for Pixelgen to generate, I have to first create a blueprint. If you remember, I know we went over this a few videos back, but it was a very long time ago. And so I've been creating the blueprint for the hair, and I've got to do one for every single scene or image, or else it has no way of interpolating, because these are just pixels moving around and I'm not using artificial intelligence or anything. It has no way of interpolating. It's literally just looking at the blueprint, looking at the pixel values, and mashing them together. So let me go ahead and make this a little bit better sized. So that means I've got to go and do every single one of them for every single animation. Now, like everything else, the work is up front. Once I do this for every single animation, then I don't have to do it for that animation ever again. I can make as many characters as I want without having to do that. The hair is different though. The reason I'm having to do the hair separately is because a character may have different styles of hair. My Pixelgen, or my art style, allows me to give every character the same body type, the same legs, the same arms, the same head shape, but I can't really do that with hair. I have to do a few different unique styles of hair so that I can have, real variety in the characters. So bald is easy. There's this long hair that I've got right here, and then short hair. and I'll probably leave it at those two first. But as I was doing this, I kind of got bored. It's one thing to do images over and over again of a character walking. That's kind of boring, but you can get into a flow. Doing blueprints, there's nothing interesting about this. So I'm going to have to find a good way to motivate myself to really work on these, because hair is not going to be the last step, and I'm going to have to do more of these. There's always going to be more work, or there will be for a while as I'm nailing down Pixelgen, so I've really got to get myself motivated on that. I fixed a couple other bugs over here, but they're not particularly interesting, so I won't go into them. But what I have been working on, what I moved over to, is a day-night cycle for Otherworld, so the actual game itself. I just moved over there because it sounded a little bit more interesting, something a little easier to take care of. And so right now you can see, if we zoom in down here, we've got a time value that cycles a day of like 30 seconds, and this is 1 second for each one of those. And as you were seeing, that the light changes per second. Right now there's no smoothing of the light, so in this bit when the sun starts setting, you'll see that it's sort of choppy, it's 1 per second. But I'll work on that in a bit. Let's see, it's getting dark, getting darker, and then right now it just completely goes dark. And you'll see this light source right here. Unity, a couple years ago, added 2D lighting into the game engine. It seems like something that would have been around for a very long time, but it's actually very new for Unity. I made a video a while back, you may have seen, of how to add light sources into Unity for 2D games, because they didn't exist back then. So you actually had to create them yourselves with OpenGL. It was kind of complicated. So I made a video on that. But nowadays, I just moved over this project into a different render engine, and now, or different render pipeline, I should say, and now we have lighting for free. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. How this works is basically it takes advantage of sines and cosines to change the light value throughout the day. Honestly, it's probably going to be easier for me to show you how this works than describe it. So let's head over to my whiteboard and I can show you what I'm talking about. So the idea for this is based on the fact that sunlight throughout the day sort of follows a wave where it's super dark, or let's say 0 at midnight, and then it goes up through early morning to max at noon, and it just sort of keeps doing that, which is kind of like a sine or a cosine on a graph. And so I figured all I have to do is move this around, make sure that we've got 0 at midnight and then 1 at noon, and then I just flatten these out, make it so that it's completely bright or completely dark most of the day, and we've only got a slight variation through early morning and evening, and I can just follow the graph, follow it a long time, and be able to set the time that way. And it works great. The only thing is, that's the math right there, which I did figure out, and I did get it into C#, and it does work, but it was a lot of work to get working. So, yeah. In the future, I will probably, I don't know, this does pose a couple issues. In the future, I could go more of the route of like splitting up the day into different times of day, and essentially like during, like I could have night and then early morning and late morning and afternoon and evening, and the sunlight doesn't actually change except early morning and evening, and that would mean, that would really give me a lot of different options. It would mean I don't have to rely on a mathematical equation tied to time. I could change it throughout the year, which is something I can't really do here. I could account for like weather patterns and if the person's inside or in a cave. Could do a lot more. Yeah, this is not the way to go. I think I'm gonna do that. Oh boy. All right, I've done it. And this is way better than the mathematical solution I was doing previously. So before I show you what it actually looks like now, spoiler alert, it looks way better and has a lot more functionality. But first of all, I want to describe how this new solution works. It works programmatically instead of mathematically, and hopefully that'll kind of make sense as we go through with this. So whether you understand code or not, that's not really important here because I'm going to describe the important pieces here. And I'm just going to put the code up on the screen. For those who do understand it, it will help them maybe a little bit. But essentially, the logic here is split up into 3 different files. We've got the clock, we've got data, and then we've got the time of day file. So in the clock, it's basically just what updates the clock and the time of day. I didn't change this a whole lot from what I had previously, but basically all it does is it has a little function that updates the time of day every second, so just adds adds 1 to the current time. And then also it checks every second what the actual time of day is. So we're going to see that in the next file right here, which is the scene data. So up here, we've got just a few different times of day that I've added. And because our days are 30 seconds long, I've just split up the day into these 6 different times of day for 30 seconds. So each one is 5 seconds. We've got 6, total of 30. That's about as complicated as the math gets now, which I'm so grateful for. And basically everything else in here is helper functions. They're basically functions like get time of day, get current time of day, and get time of day length, the length of time that time of day is. I've said that phrase a lot. I'm probably going to say it a lot more. But these are just helper functions, which makes the clock and the time of day files up at the top you see up here be able to work without just being bloated with a bunch of repetitious code. So this is just data right here, and this is how I've split up the day. I could split it up differently. And then over here is how the actual lighting works. So I've commented out this green stuff, this code down here that doesn't run anymore, basically what I had before. And all of this was that mathematical equation I just showed you previously. And this is kind of me puzzling out how all of it worked. But now it is happening in this set sun brightness function, which is really simple. Essentially, if the time of day is not early morning or evening, then we don't do anything with the sun intensity, the light level. But if it is early morning, then we linearly interpolate, say that 3 times fast, linearly interpolate between darkness, so 0.1 light intensity as I have right now, and brightness, which I just have set to 1 intensity. These could be different values, but basically I want the night to be almost dark, which is why it's 0.1, or which is like 10% light essentially, and then 1, which is 100% essentially. So what is linear interpolation? Because that's what we're doing right here. The math is happening behind the scenes instead of having a big equation that I'm having to write out. I think I've used the word interpolate a few times before, and it has come to my attention that that's not a very common word. I learned that in classes in school, and I just got used to it. But you may have never heard of it before, or you probably don't know what it means. Essentially, and the mathematicians out there will probably not like this definition, but what works for me is interpolation is trying to find a value between 2 known values. So you may know that absolute darkness, nighttime, is 0.1 intensity, and day is 1 intensity. We also may know the time of day, so when it is in the early morning, but we don't know the light level that it's supposed to be at that time of day. We know it's supposed to be somewhere between darkness and somewhere between total brightness, but we've got to find out what that value is there. Using the 2 extreme values of complete darkness and complete light to find out what that middle value is between them is called interpolation. And in our case, we're doing linear interpolation. So essentially, in our case, this means the light level is going to increase linearly or consistently throughout the early morning, and then it's going to linearly decrease or consistently decrease throughout the evening. It's not going to start out slowly increasing and then speed up and increase or anything like that. It's just going to be a linear increase and decrease. That's essentially what linear interpolation is. It's not really too hard to wrap your mind around. If you're still confused, you may be overcomplicating it. But essentially, this function, mathf.lerp, or linear interpolation, is going to take the current time in the morning. So let's say it's 3 seconds into the 5-second early morning. and then it's going to decide what value it should be between 0.1 and 1 based on how far along we are between those two values. And so 3 would be right in between 1 and 5, unless I'm just completely getting that wrong. And so that would be immediately between 0.1 and 1. The nice thing here is all I have to do is call this pre-baked in function lerp. And all of that is happening behind the scenes. I don't have to calculate this. That would probably be a fairly easy calculation, but I didn't even bother thinking about it. And what we ultimately get is the sun intensity that it is supposed to be at that time of day. And then essentially we do the exact same thing for evening, but we reverse it. We go from day to night instead of night to day. And those are the only times we do anything. We only want the sunlight to change in the early morning and to change in the evening and nothing more. So if we go over to the code, or go out of the code, I should say, and go back into Unity, we can see it happening. So when this compiles, you can see in the top right, it says it's late night right now, but right after 5 seconds, it's going to go into the early morning, and we are increasing light until we get to 10. It didn't speed up throughout that process, it was just a constant rate. And now we're in the late morning, now we're in the afternoon, and once we get to 20 seconds, it's going to change to evening, and the light level is gradually decreasing until we get to 0.1 at early night. And then we just start the cycle all over again. You can see this is a lot better than what I showed you before, that janky, like harsh movements, and I didn't have a lot of control of how the light changed. This would be really easy to manipulate. If I did want it to be a different type of interpolation, so speed up or slow down, I could do that with this because I just changed that function. I honestly don't know how light works in the morning and the evening, if it speeds up. I think it does. I think it starts out as a gradual shift and then increases or decreases very quickly. But I don't know, I'll have to look into that. The next thing I need to work on, and probably the last thing I work on for the video, is I want the light to change color. I want it to be a cooler lighting at night and then a warmer lighting in the day. Now I can probably just do this similar to how I did the light. At night I set a color, and in the day I set a color, and then I linearly interpolate between the colors, because, you know, it's just a value at the end of the day. We'll see what happens. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if something crazy is going to happen, but I'm going to start working on that right now because that shouldn't be too hard, knock on wood, and then we'll see what happens. All right, before I actually add the colors into the code that I have right now, I decided to put together a little test just to see that the colors would lerp just as well as the light intensity. So let's go ahead and test this out. I just have this little sphere right here. And where is it? It is right here. And I've just got this little slider right here, and right now we're using RGB, so I just want to see, this is the blue color that it could be at night, and this is the top one is going to be the yellow color that it could be at the top. I think my code works, but we're going to see. Yes, ooh, that looks cool. Yeah, and all of the values in between, I think, work pretty well. I mean, it goes a little more gray than I expected, but I mean, I guess that makes sense. In between blue and yellow, I would expect there to be, I guess, white somewhere in there, so that's kind of what we're seeing right there. Okay, do we get the same thing if we use HSV? Ooh. Ooh. That looks a little broken. And just a few jump scares later, and I actually have it working now. It was a little harder than I expected. Shouldn't have said it was going to be super easy, but as you can see, it's late at night, and it's a nice cool blue. And then as we go through the early morning, it heats up in the day, and you can see it looks like a fairly hot summer day, honestly. And then we go through the late morning, we get our way to the afternoon, and then as we get into the evening, you'll see the lighting cool down, and you can see right here as the color changes on the right-hand side until it is dark and cool at night again. It's little things like this that just make development really fun. Yeah, Pixelgen may be a little bit of a grind. It may be super time-consuming and slow pace. a lot of work before I see any fruit from it, but it's stuff like this that honestly, just a little ingenuity and not overcomplicating things, as you saw me do previously in the video, and you get a really cool effect that I'm just excited the different things I can do with this, the different lightings I can have, lengths of time of day, or different coloring for different weather patterns and stuff, and I'm just excited to get into the whole lighting system for my game. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode. We've covered a bit of ground, and it absolutely wasn't the ground we expected to cover, but I need to get a video out. It's been way too long that I've been holding out on you guys, so I'm going to release this basically now. If you liked the video, please give it a like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Honestly, sorry it took me so long to release a video. I know a lot of people, a fair number of people watch these videos, and I appreciate that. And I really want to keep on a better schedule than I've been going on right now. But as it is, I think everything in my life, well, most things in my life that have been chaos right now, are calming down, and I should have a bit more time and, honestly, energy to put into this. So we'll see going forward. I hope I can have a better schedule. I really want to get more development done for this. Thanks for sticking with me through it. Okay. No, that's not right. Ooh, yeah, that's not right at all.